Act 1, Chapter 1. Ella jolted awake sharply, momentarily disoriented by her surroundings. She was back in her bedroom in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Her cat Iris was nestled beside her, rumbling soft purrs, but Ella felt anything but at peace, the lingering remnants of her nightmare still haunting her. Faded echoes of her twin siblings' frantic and desperate pleas replayed in her mind, his words full of fear and confusion, his voice a jumble of words. "Ella, help me. Can't find. I've lost time." His face appeared so vivid, his eyes urgent and wide, but as she attempted to reach out to him, he slipped just beyond her grasp, his form fading. It'd been 8 days since Oscar disappeared without a trace. The police were running out of leads, their investigation stalled, and she couldn't help but feel that she should be doing more to find him. Her guilt made it hard to breathe, the room already stuffy and full of so many memories of their childhood. "Morning, Iris," Ella murmured, her voice heavy with sleep and tinged with a melancholy that had become all too familiar. She propped herself on her elbows and ran a hand through her tousled brown hair. After Oscar's disappearance, she put the move to London with her boyfriend on hold in favor of living with her mother, Adelaide. She had no choice but to stay in Oscar's room, the one they used to share as children. Ella rubbed her eyes, trying to banish the dream from her mind. She sighed and picked up a photo of Oscar beside the bed, his thick brown hair and bright smile frozen in time. "Where are you?" she whispered. "What do you want to tell me?" She put the photo back on the nightstand and stroked Iris's fur. "I don't function very well as a human being without my brother," she confessed out loud in a hollow, mocking tone. Iris just blinked in reply, her green eyes full of feline indifference. Ella swung her legs over the side of the bed, watching as Iris jumped off and meandered around the room, her tail swishing lazily. Ella followed with slow and deliberate movements, an effort not to wake her mother sleeping down the hall. Adelaide hadn't taken Oscar's disappearance well. She paced the apartment at all hours, her mind consumed by worry and dark thoughts, muttering to herself and jumping at every shadow. Her drinking only exasperated the situation, and she didn't get much sleep as it stood. The kitchen was eerily quiet. Once there, the silence was broken only by a soft meow, as Iris hopped onto a chair at the kitchen table. Ella dropped some slices of bread into the toaster and began making some coffee. Her mind drifted to one of her last conversations with Oscar. They had argued about something insignificant, as siblings do. Now she couldn't even remember what it had been about. Perhaps a borrowed shirt or a misplaced book. If only she had known that it might be their last. She took a seat at the table. On the fridge rested a magnet, which was some old thing likely bought on vacation. It held up a photo of her and Oscar, their arms draped around each other, smiles wide and genuine. The contrast between the image and current reality was a bitter pill. She quickly finished her toast and headed for the living room, the cat pacing right behind. Ella settled down on the sagging floral print couch, clutching her coffee mug. The warmth seeped into her palms as she surveyed the living room. Once a cozy space, it was now just another artifact of their crumbling lives. She couldn't help but ponder the dream again. Could it be a sign or a message? What could it possibly mean? She was grateful to see him again, even if only in a dream. Dreams can be an escape from the real world, sometimes even the nightmares. She decided to push it aside. Just a dream, nothing more. Ella sipped her coffee again. A calendar hung on the hall closet, making it very apparent that her departure date had passed. A bold red circle around October 4th. She imagined Sam alone in London, waiting for her. A pang of guilt twisted in her stomach. They had been so excited to start this new chapter of their lives, to experience the thrill of a new city, and the freedom of living with one another. But then Oscar disappeared, and everything's changed. Ella remembered the frantic phone call from her mother, her voice trembling with panic. "Oscar's gone. He's just missing. His friends haven't heard from him, and his cell phone is off. It's not like him." Those words alone shattered Ella's world and tossed her life off course. Adelaide's usually stern voice had been replaced by raw fear, a sound that was very rare from her, Ever since that day, she hasn't been able to imagine a normal life. How could she leave now with her family broken and lost? How could she leave her mother in this time of unimaginable anguish? Ella knew she had to stay a little longer. She thought about the boxes in her bedroom, packed and ready for the move that never happened. How long would they sit there? They would likely be gathering dust. Ella's phone buzzed abruptly from the pocket of her pajamas. She fished it out and felt her throat tighten at the name flashing on the screen. Sam. With a weary sigh, she swiped to answer the call. Hey. She tried to inject some levity into her tone. Ella, thank God, Sam said, relief evident in his voice. Have you heard anything? Is there any news? No, nothing. The police have found nothing. No leads or clues, still just dead ends and unanswered questions. Sam's responding sigh crackled across the line. I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine. Ella's fingers tightened around her phone as she listened to Sam's sympathetic words. She longed for simpler times when she was still at NYU, where they first met and were inseparable throughout college. I wish you were still in New York, Ella reminisced. Being able just to see you. I do too. Starting this new job, the timing couldn't be worse. I won't be able to leave London right now, not with everything on my plate. I'm so sorry, Ella. A wave of frustration washed over her. I know. I feel so alone here. Everything feels broken. It's hard to think straight without you. I wish I could be there to help you cope with this, Sam said earnestly. We were about to start a new adventure together, and now it all feels so out of reach. But we'll get through it, I promise. Ella wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. She twisted a strand of her brown hair around her finger. I can't help thinking that if you were still here, maybe things would be different. Maybe both of us could have prevented whatever happened to Oscar. Maybe we could have seen signs if you were in trouble or, I don't know, done something. Who knows? Maybe, he said softly. But you're not alone. Even from a distance, I'm still here for you. I'm just a call away, day or night. Ella sniffled hard, blinking back the resurgence of hot tears. She clutched the phone tighter. I know, Sammy, she whispered. Soon. Once we know what's happened to Oscar, any sooner, it wouldn't feel right. Right. His voice was thick with concern. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself. Ella's heart swelled with gratitude at his words. I promise, I will. I should probably get ready for work now. My shift starts soon. I'm filling in for Oscar at the coffee house today. Don't want to be late. Just remember, I'm always here if you need me. Just keep me updated, okay? Thanks. I really appreciate that. She hung up and set her phone aside, absently stroking Iris with her free hand, who had curled up beside her during the call. Ella rummaged through an unpacked suitcase, fingers brushing against familiar fabrics until she found a well-worn black t-shirt and a pair of ripped jeans. She shook her head, trying to stop her mind from racing. Was Oscar kidnapped? Was he hurt somewhere and desperately needing her help? The police had been helpful, but mostly seemed to take a wait-and-see approach. She reached for her phone on the nightstand, heart skipping beats as she checked for missed calls or messages. Nothing. Just like every day since Oscar disappeared. Ella slipped the phone into her pocket and looked around the room, taking in the remnants of her brother's life. His guitar leaning against the wall, a stack of books teetering precariously on the desk, their pages full of scribbled notes and song lyrics. Her eyes lingered on more framed photographs of the two of them, always with their arms around each other, grinning at the camera. Such innocent times are now tainted by reality. Getting ready in the mirror, her red and swollen eyes were all she could focus on. She splashed some cold water on her face and checked her appearance one last time before tying her hair into a ponytail. Iris snaked between Ella's ankles and meowed insistently. I know. Ella bent down to scratch behind Iris's ears. You're hungry. In the kitchen, Adelaide turned to give Iris a scornful look. The cat shrank back under the withering gaze, tucking her tail between her legs and seeking refuge behind Ella's ankles. I swear if that mangy beast pees on my rugs. Adelaide trailed off, shuffling through the kitchen in a ratty pink bathrobe that had seen better days. The harsh light overhead cast unflattering shadows on her face. Ella grabbed a scoop and filled the cat's food bowl. "Good morning to you too, Mom." Her mother grunted in response, bloodshot eyes narrowing as she watched Ella tend to the cat. Hints of stale wine and body odor wafted from her mother's unwashed form. "I guess I ought to be thankful." Adelaide stared at the cat as it cautiously approached its food bowl. At least the filthy creature might catch some rodents in this godforsaken dump. She gestured at the water-stained ceiling. Ella knew better than to snap back. Even before Oscar disappeared, antagonizing Adelaide was like poking a semi-feral animal. "I'm going to work," Ella said dryly, as she grabbed her battered jean jacket off the hook and shrugged it on. She paused in the doorway, giving Iris one last affectionate look. "Be good for Mommy, okay?" A resigned sigh escaped Ella's lips. She closed the apartment door behind her, the click of the lock echoing in the empty hallway. Trudging in the elevator, her boots scuffed against the threadbare carpet. She jabbed the call button more forcefully than necessary, watching as the numbers above the door flickered. "Come on, you piece of shit," she said under her breath, tapping her foot. The building's elevator was notoriously unreliable, prone to sudden breakdowns and long periods of disrepair. Ella had stopped counting the number of times she'd been forced to take the stairs, legs burning from the effort of climbing 7 flights. She glanced at her watch, anxiety creeping in as the seconds ticked by. Don't be late, don't be late. The machinery groaned behind the closed doors as if mocking her urgency. She pressed the button again, harder this time, as if its sheer force would make the elevator car move faster. The door finally creaked open to reveal the cramped interior. Ella stepped inside, her nose wrinkling at the stale air that greeted her, admiring the walls covered in a patchwork of graffiti and scratched initials. She pressed the button for the lobby, sending up a silent prayer that she wouldn't get trapped between floors. She leaned back against the walls, trying to ignore the elevator's unsettling sway as it descended. Concentrating on her breathing, she willed her racing heart to slow down. Suddenly a loud clang echoed through the shaft, and the elevator lurched to a jarring halt. Ella's stomach sank as the lights flickered, and then dimmed entirely, leaving her in the dark. "No, no, no," she muttered, fear rising quickly. She slammed her palm against the call button, but the only response was a faint buzzing sound. Every second felt like an eternity. She thought of Iris curled up somewhere, blissfully unaware of her predicament. It was useless to scream for help. Her cries would likely be dismissed in a building where strange noises were commonplace. Just as she began to feel nauseatingly claustrophobic, a low moan echoed through the elevator shaft. It quickly shifted back into motion, almost knocking Ella off balance. All the lights flickered back to life, a harsh fluorescent glow casting stark shadows across the small space. She let out a shaky breath. The elevator slowly resumed its descent. At once the doors grinded open to reveal the lobby. Ella practically tumbled out, legs shaking with relief, and she took a breath of the marginally fresher air. She strolled past the battered mailboxes out through the front doors, grateful to see the sidewalk. The mid-October wind had picked up, whipping through the city streets with a biting chill. She shivered and pulled her jacket tighter around her. Dry leaves scattered around, their crisp rustling drowning out the sound of traffic and pedestrians. She gazed up at the cloudy sky above the buildings ahead, several gray masses obscuring any hint of sunlight. She could still make out the towering suspension cables of the Verrazano Bridge in the distance. Thoughts of Oscar grew in her mind before a familiar figure caught her eye. Huddled against the side of a dilapidated building and partially obscured by overgrown bushes, it was the old homeless man she often saw on the way to work. His angular face was etched with furrowed and weathered lines, a roadmap of a long life and hardships endured. Dirty, tattered clothes hung loosely from his frame, and a filthy blanket covered his lap. Usually, she would have moved on without a second glance. Today, something compelled her to slow down, captivated by an inexplicable force. As she approached without much thought, the man lifted his head and fixed her with a stare that pierced her soul. His eyes were a startlingly blue, clear and sharp, despite his age. "Spare some change, miss?" he rasped, extending a gnarled hand toward her. Ella shook her head, averting her eyes. Sorry, I don't have any cash on me right now. She started to continue walking by, but the man's words cut through the air like a blade. He's sorry he had to leave you. His voice took on a strange, distant quality. He didn't mean to leave you like this. Ella's heart stuttered in her chest, and a cold sweat broke out on her skin. She whirled around to face the man, her eyes wild. What did you say? The man tilted his head, a sad smile tugging at the edges of his cracked lips. He's sorry he had to leave you. Ella's breath caught in her throat, a strangled sound escaping her quivering lips. She stared at the man, mind unsteady with disbelief and desperation. Who, my brother? She managed to choke out, clenching her fist at her sides. The man only shrugged and looked off into the distance. Ella's heart raced as she thought of her father, who had passed away 10 years ago. In the wake of that loss, she remembered encounters with another homeless man who would greet her warmly, remarking on how she was growing into a fine young woman, always bringing her a sense of comfort. It felt as if her father was communicating through him. Since then, she started to believe that many homeless people were no longer in control of all their senses, and were often more like messengers of the spirit world, tuned into an otherworldly frequency ordinary people couldn't access. Ella's heart pounded against her chest, a sickening fear settling in the pit of her stomach. The thought of him possibly talking about Oscar and offering a message from him from beyond the veil was all too much at that moment, paralyzing her with dread. Is he dead? Ella asked, her voice breaking at the last word. The homeless man's eyes remained averted and vacant. A sob escaped her as she reached out to steady herself against the building. The rough bricks scraping her hand. Oh God, I have to go. I can't. She stumbled away, vision blurry with tears. The man's haunting words spun in dizzying circles around her mind. If the man's words were a message from Oscar, that must mean he was truly dead. Maybe that is what Oscar was trying to tell her in her dream. The thought was unbearable. Oh, Oscar, what has happened to you?